Well, hello everybody. It's been a while since I've done any type of an assembly video to put on my Facebook page, but this is my most recent creation once I get around the post. This is an FMS Tigercat. It's colored after an aircraft that races at Reno, Nevada. There are 4 or 5 of these aircraft that have been doing it in the past. This is the only one that's not painted navy blue. It's an F7F3 if I'm not mistaken. It is electric powered. Obviously it has twin engines. Or motors, beg your pardon. I don't recall the KV in the motors. I'm thinking they're 425, 450, right in that area. The model is constructed of styrofoam with some plastic components. It does have all aluminum oleostrut retractable landing gear that comes with the airplane from the manufacturer. You can also get it in the dark navy blue color. I chose the supposedly aluminum looking colored one just to have a little bit of difference. It's called La Patrona. That's rather kind of a unique nose art going on there. Thought it was pretty tough, really. It does have landing gear doors, as you can see, which close, of course, after the landing gear is up, and open, obviously, but prior to the landing gear retracting or extending. A little snap-on extended range fuel tank, which is nothing more than looks, something you can break off real easy. The nose gear is rather scale in its appearance with the offset pivot on the yoke and what have you. Its wingspan is 1,700 millimeters, which translates into American about 67 inches. It's rather weighty though, even though it's constructed of styrofoam. This rascal's in the 15 to 17 pound range quite easily. It does have, as I work my way around here, wingtip lights, which are a nice addition for looks. As you purchase it out of the box, of course it's a series of sub-assemblies that you simply put together. Most all of it is screwed together. It can be disassembled to a certain degree for transportation, although it would be a hassle. Yet I haven't tried to get it up the steps into the house from the basement here. All of your servos are pre-installed. All of the push rods for the servos, which is that rod that goes between that nice ugly black push rod servo that's stuck inside of the fuselage to the rudder in this image. Too bad that's not painted silver. That'd be tough to hide it. You can also see the elevator for this particular side of the horizontal stab. It does have separate elevator servos for each one, which is kind of a neat feature. But with its weight and what have you, it would require such. You can't tell diddly damn on a close-up of the detail that can get into the foam. Try to get some of the panels and what would be representative of the rivet lines of all the panels. You can see what I'm speaking of. These things and the panel lines. It's really not a bad looking airplane, really. I've always had a hair at my fanny for Second World War era twin engine, what would be considered fighter type aircraft, which this is a naval aircraft, probably flown more by the Marines than the Navy, more than likely, during the Second World War to help cover the B-29s that were bombing Japan at the time. This aircraft wasn't released till very, very late in the war. And then with that, it really didn't see any type of service until after Second World War with various other countries, more than likely in Southeast Asia and what have you. Several examples at museums, but only a handful of flying examples. Wasn't super fast, but for its size and its weight, it would get with it. As I try to walk around the silly thing here, I'll come around the post in the basement again, do my merry dance. Again, electric powered. Roughly 10 servos. I've forgotten the various torques, but they're more than adequate for the model. It does have one unique feature, which is kind of based off of a P-38, yet I don't believe the full-size aircraft had this, was that it had this one has counter-rotating propellers. In other words, when this motor is switched on, it turns this way, and when you light up this motor, it turns into the fuselage also, which actually aids it in keeping it straight, because the twisting force of the engines and the propellers are used against each other to make the airplane kind of go straight, which in modeling helps out quite a bit. Rather slim fuselage, if you will, skinny, but kind of tall. This area here, past the canopy, past the antenna, this gizmo right back here, which you push, and it pops this hatch piece, which you can pretty well tell the line off. And this is where the battery compartment is at. It utilizes a single 22 or 6S battery pack to power the entire model, which is not too awful bad. The electronic speed controllers, which are housed actually inside the wing here, if I can get down here, this scoop is actually open, and the electronic speed controller for this particular motor is housed inside the wing. And there's a cheater outlet underneath that grated area that you see there with all the 6 black holes in it. This is for the outlet air to cool that particular unit, because they do get warm. It does have some cooling holes cut in the dummy here to make it look as if it's a actual gasoline motor. If I can keep the camera on it correctly and pay attention to the camera and not my fingertip, to help cool this. Also, for the internals, the battery needs to have a little air going over it. It does have a small louvered area in the bottom of the nose cone, and there is a channel that goes through the styrofoam back through the battery compartment, and there will exit out there again. If I pay attention to the camera, I keep it on the airplane. We're going to go around it here real quick and do a merry dance and make it look like a really, really crappy home video. And we're going to look underneath the airplane, and you will see those 2 holes. Those are the vents for the inlet air that comes in the nose. And the reason for the really, really small vents in the front and the big holes in the back is to be able for it to pass air through it easily while it's in forward flight. Big in the front, small in the back. That's as with about any aircraft. It does have a fakester looking tail hook too, which would be tits if you could make that come down and swing up. And I suppose you could, but it'd take quite a bit of surgery inside the airplane to make that work. And we weren't going to go quite that far, not with this particular project. Obviously, I've just completed this airplane. This is how it appears out of the box. The wings were pre-assembled with the servos installed. The nacelles, this part and the great big part you see underneath with the landing gear that's mounted in it and goes back to the trailing edge of the wing. If you look right here, 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. And you just screw the silly thing together. The wires pass through from all these components, pass through to the interior of the aircraft, and all plug into some master bowl of spaghetti, which is as it appears. The battery itself will sit right up here in this area. Now on these particular aircraft, a lot of the guys online were advising to set it up nose heavy with regard to its center of gravity, which is about right in here. And you wanted to put enough lead or a heavy enough battery in the nose to where if the airplane was on a teeter-totter and you were two same weight people and you balance, well, you wanted that balance point, instead of being here, you wanted it somewhere up in here, aiding its flying. I have done that on this particular aircraft by simply adding 1 whole pound of lead into the forward section here of the battery bay. Yeah, 1 pound. Nonetheless, it proved out to balance correctly in that fashion. And if I don't knock it off the workbench trying to pop this hatch open here, if I can get it to work with 1 finger, and I probably can't because I keep pushing the airplane around. I'm going to change hands here. There we go. This and 1 other component was the only things that required glue. Everything else screwed together. Really neat. Quite the deal. Okay, we remove the hatch, which is going to be doing a dozen different times every time you fly it. And you peer down inside. And this is where your battery would set. And if we were to look up forward, even further up under the nose, up into this cavity here, there's a piece of white foam I stuck to a couple of small chunks of lead about the size of a stick of butter, and its squareness, and about, yay thick. Those 2 pieces of lead, which are pushed all the way up far forward as they can go, were the 1 pound of lead that I was referring to add to the weight of the aircraft with the batteries that I have to use in it. The main lead for the single battery that powers the model completely, radio and electric motors. And the spaghetti bowl of wiring, which is hidden way back in here. Quite impressive. There are many guys who could lay that out a bunch better than I have, but well, we're going to try it this way, see what happens. This little unit right here, you can see it, that is the receiver for the radio, and the wires plug into it to operate the aircraft. And this coming Sunday, being the 14th of October, weather permitting, we're going to attempt a maiden flight in this rascal. I'm kind of proud of this. I've always wanted a Tigercat and or a P-38. So I chose this since the P-38 was somewhat smaller in dimension and what have you. This antenna I'm coming down onto right here, that's the other glue-on component. You can see the servos are hatched on the lower surfaces of the wing. In other words, there's a square box there that kind of covers a little black piece that we saw on the tail. Too bad the tail of the aircraft does not include such. Yet the push rods, which is a metal rod here from the servo to the control surface, was pre-installed, and I'll be damned if they weren't just essentially dead on. I about fell over. I really did. I was impressed with that. So far everything has worked quite well on the workbench with it. I was really impressed with some of the other brand names of models I've had have been real pieces of shit. Some of the other ones have been okay, mediocre to okay. This is the only FMS brand name model I've ever purchased. It's kind of the top of their line product, if you will. And I'm really impressed with it. I'll just have to see how well I can fly it or how well it flies with the setup that I have, and or of course how well I can fly it. Trusty dusty convert Futaba to Spectrum 2.4. I utilize Spectrum brand name receivers in the aircraft. It is a Spectrum changeover module. Yeah, that is installed in my old favorite transmitter that I'm most familiar with. Makes it work quite well. Have a full 8 channels to go with it. And this is a Thursday evening prior to the Sunday that we're going to fly, which is the 14th. Hopefully the weather cooperates, as I said. If you want to call it that. Simply an assembly manual. As I said, it's all a series of sub-assemblies that you put together, pre-painted, pre-decaled, which I thought was neat on this one. The navy blue versions of this same aircraft come with very few markings on them and a few sheets, I believe 3, various markings of the various appearances of the various aircraft that they want to try to base it off of, which all, including this one, as I mentioned earlier, race at Reno. Yeah, that's pretty cool too. Nothing like a pair of twin engines like that going past. It has a very unique sound that just makes my motor run, unfortunately. But the only thing I can do with it is try to copy it with a toy airplane. That's an incorrect term. A flying model aircraft. Many guys have actually decked these out, doing some airbrush work. Go around the post again. With regard to, say, like the one gentleman in a YouTube video that I noticed, I don't recall his name at this point. This is a scale representation of the actual exhaust outlets if it were to have a real engine in it instead of an electric motor. He takes his airbrush and sprays this burnt exhaust stain out, and there are 3 of these for each nacelle. One on the side, one on the top. It's kind of hard to see that one, but it's down there on the side too. See a little darker spot there on the wing. Have a burnt, brownish look. Excuse me. And really enhanced it. And there are other guys who have done theirs up even as nice, if not better. Really cool. I mean, you can go as deep as you want. I'll be happy with the damn thing, me being able to fly it and not crash it, to be quite honest with you. And it flies correctly. And that's hopefully will be found out this coming Sunday. I have a couple of videos up that were of my black and orange E-Flight Prometheus 2 biplane. There again, it's an all foam model, pre-assembled type thing, which most of them are anymore. It's really hard to find a wooden kit if you actually wanted to build a model airplane of back in the day when I was first got started. But nonetheless, there's a convenience aspect of these pre-assembled aircraft, but then again, there are issues that arise with these aircraft, and you do have to deal with them and pick some other guys' brains and see what they have to say who have dove into you before. Okay, well, hey, I've ran my face long enough, and we'll get some more tape going on into the weekend. Hopefully the weather permits, as I said, and we'll be out at the Orbiter's RC model field in Frankfort, Indiana, and hopefully get some airtime. We'll talk at you then.